Hi guys, it's Kate again. This time I wanted to show you my favorite books from March. It was a really good reading month, which was so nice because it was my birthday month too. I usually get 1 to 2 favorite books every month, and I usually read like 15 to 20 books. So that's a pretty good record for me, but this month I ended up with 4 favorites, and I'm just so happy and excited to share them with you. So the first one is Louisiana's Way Home by Kate DiCamillo. This is the second book in the 3 Ranchero series. The first book, Rainy Nightingale, was tied for the top spot of my favorites of last year. It was just such a good, empathetic, relatable, sweet book. So I was nervous to read Louisiana's Way Home because I was like, is it going to ruin the first book for me? Is it going to, change Raimi's character or something, or just not have the right vibe? That book was on such a pedestal for me that I was like, they better not ruin it. So I went into this pretty nervous, and I ended it in tears. It was absolutely beautiful. It had the quirkiness and the heart of the first one. And Louisiana was her own character. She wasn't like a copy of Raimi. The little cameos Raimi had in it were perfectly in character. And it was just such an empathetic, sweet story. I absolutely, absolutely loved it. So I will be reading the last book, Beverly, right here, hopefully soon. But yeah, that's Louisiana's Way Home. I highly recommend it. Start with Rainy Nightingale. You will love them. And then next on my favorites was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I watched The Martian on a filter around when it first came out on streaming, and then I eventually read a filtered copy of the book. And so when I knew that Project Hail Mary was coming out, I was like, well, I gotta read the book first. So I read it in 4 days, and like 3 days later I went and saw the movie. Like that's how fast I read it. And it's pretty chunky for what I usually read. So yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect. I mean, I knew with The Martian it was going to be smart, it was going to be funny, it's going to have a lot of science, but The Martian had a lot of language, which is why I read a filtered copy. So then going into this, it had somewhat of a different tone. Like, it was more hopeful. It was the same amount of goofy, but it was more hopeful. And it was really, really clean. Like, there was, almost no language. With The Martian, he's all alone through the whole story, but this is not a spoiler. It's been in the marketing and everything, but in this one, he meets an alien. And that ends up being the absolute best part of the book. It is so sweet. So well written. Just the scenes where they're figuring out each other's language, scenes where they're doing science together. Really, really sweet. And I will say the movie adapted that aspect perfectly. They did a really good job adapting most of the aspects. They did tone down the science some because this is very science-filled. But I still found the book really interesting. Like, my eyes didn't glaze over. I was just like, this is really interesting stuff. I don't know what's going on, but I want to. And then there were 2 really big twists in this. And if you can read the book first, I suggest it, because the movie foreshadows them a little more, so you could kind of guess what was going to happen. But in the book, they're just complete blindsides. Like, it's amazing. Like, I literally gasped when I came to the really big twist. I just really love how hopeful and smart this one is. I'm going to read Artemis eventually. I wasn't sure I wanted to read it because I've heard mixed reviews of it. But I'm going to read Artemis, and then I will read whatever else he comes out with. This next one, I was really nervous to read. It's called I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, translated by Ross Schwartz. And I had heard a little bit about this, that it was iconic feminist dystopian fiction. And I'd heard the premise that it was about 40 women trapped in a cage underground. They don't know why they're there. They don't know who's captured them. There's like no answers for anything. But I didn't know much about it besides that. So I bought a copy kind of on a whim. I was like, okay, I will read this. And it ended up being such a powerful exploration of what it means to be human, what it means to be a woman. Are you still a woman when you haven't had the experiences or the full biology of being a woman? What does it mean to be human if you haven't had the experiences, if you don't feel the quote-unquote right emotions? And I will say it is pretty bleak. Although I didn't find it too violent. There was some violence, but because it's written by a female author, personally, this has been my experience, that female authors tend to focus more on the emotion of things than the gore of things. So, I, as a sensitive reader, was able to handle the darkness and the violence. And if you're someone who wants to know the why behind why they're in a cage, or or what planet are they on? Are they on Earth? Are they on another planet? You will definitely find the ending of this very frustrating. So if you're looking for answers, I don't recommend reading this. I do have my own theories, and I'm someone who loves to theorize about plots and things like that. But, yeah, it's more about the experience of just following the character as she comes of age. She's the one child that is put in the cage with them. They don't know why she's in there. She doesn't know her name. She doesn't remember how she got there at all because she was so young. And something that this book really taught me was to not give in to apathy. Because the thing that's different between this girl, who's the main character, and the other woman in the cage is that they've given up. And she is the one who inspires them to kind of fight for their lives, to be curious about things, to kind of even just dream again. So, yeah, it really taught me not to give in to apathy with life's limitations. And then the other thing that it inspired me with was I'm not a very educated person. Most of what I know I've learned from reading books, which is okay, but there are some areas that if I were called on to teach somebody about, I wouldn't know how to teach them. And the women in this book are not well educated, except for one of them who trained to be a nurse. But the rest of them were housewives, shop clerks, waitresses, stenographers, that sort of thing. And so they don't know science, even if they learn it, they haven't had to use it. They don't know philosophy. There's a lot of stuff they don't know. And the girl in this is curious, and they're the only ones who can teach her, and they're not able to give her what she needs. And in some ways, they don't have a lot of survival skills either. And so it just reminded me that, as a human being, I owe it to myself and the next generations to learn more. So that was really interesting. And then last but not least, we have The Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning. This one I knew because it's got a testimony by Rich Mullins. I knew it was important to Rich Mullins, and he wrote a whole album called Liturgy, a Legacy, and a Ragamuffin Band, and he talked about how he was a ragamuffin. And so this one, I actually wasn't planning this, but it just came up randomly, although, I think the Holy Spirit had something to do with it, because I ended up reading it during Lent. And it is such a beautiful picture of the gospel. I kind of have a weary soul from some things I used to be taught about God and how, you gotta do the right thing to make him happy. And even though they didn't say that you earn your salvation, that was pretty much what you were supposed to do. And so just being reminded of the grace that and the love that is inherent in God's character. And then one thing that I think I will always remember from this book is he pointed out in the story of the prodigal son, when the prodigal son returns to his father, he doesn't return because he's sorry. He returns because he's hungry and he knows that his father will take care of him. And for his father, that's enough. And I'm just reminded of, I used to beat myself up a lot because when I became a Christian as a child, it was like solely to avoid hell. Solely. And that's at least hopefully changed. I've grown deeper in relationship with God. But I was always like, I didn't come to him for the right reason. And so just that reminder that coming to him at all is what he wants from us was honestly really beautiful and powerful. So I'm really happy I read this one. It was a balm to my soul. I'll be thinking about it a lot. And yeah, so those are my 4 favorite books from March. It was a really good reading month. And I'm excited to see how April goes. So thanks for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye.